Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate in Lakota means people. Brought to you by Native Sun News Today. Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guest today is Miss Leatrice Chick Big Crow of the Siouan Big Crow Youth Development Center on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Thank you for being here, Miss Big Crow. I really appreciate your time and the things you're doing on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
Thank you, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about the club, the center. I call it club because it used to be a Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, so it kind of
Yeah,
has
so it
that
kind of-
moniker still. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's just jump right in. Could you tell us a little bit about your daughter, Siouan, and the early development of the Boys and Girls Club and, kind of her athletic career? Many people know her, but not all of our viewers are aware of who she was and who she is.
Well, mainly Siouan was just a mischievous little girl, but she went on to do some memorial things, really great things. She started really early. She got her first MVP trophy when she was 5 years old. And it was just a kind of a fluke, but that's a story in itself. She followed her older sisters around, and she idolized Lolly Steele, and so that started her into basketball. And Siouan worked really hard. Every day she was out there. She had her little routine going, and she was always banging the ball against the house till we got her a basketball hoop. But when she was growing up, I never realized the impact that she was making until after she passed. And it was just an amazing experience for me. It was a humbling experience for me. All the people that came and they all had Siouan stories, and people had never met her, and yet she made an impact on them. One of the things was the prisoners in Sioux Falls did a great tribute to her, and they made a vase with all her accomplishments on and presented it. There's just been so many people, that Siouan has touched and that have come back and helped the center. We got started, when Siouan was here, she was always talking, and she kind of had this natural ability to attract people that wanted to talk or had a problem. And adults and kids alike would come to her with their problems, and she'd tell them, I'm going away to college, but when I come back, I'm going to build you a happy town. You're not going to have to worry about that here. And so I knew about Happy Town, but it never occurred to me. And then when people came after she had died, they said, now we're not going to get our Happy Town. And I was a grieving mother at that time. I just didn't care. But in the days to come, there was a lot of people that really made an impact. And I'm lucky to be the face of the organization, but actually the backbone is so many people out there. They volunteers, people that just took the initiative. Because when Siouan died, she left some really big shoes to follow.
May I ask what year she passed away in?
1992.
1992, wow. Yeah, no, continue, I'm sorry.
Okay, Siouan had two goals in life. One, teen life. One was to be on the first high school championship basketball team, state basketball team. The other one was to be valedictorian of her class. Well, Siouan carried a 4.0 grade point average, and she made the winning shot in the state championship in 1989.
Wow.
And that was kind of really Siouan's basketball got her a lot of attention, but Siouan had an idea of making life better for people. She wanted to create Happy Town, and Happy Town was a place where everyone got along, supported each other, was proud of each other's accomplishments, but more importantly was drug, alcohol, and racism free. And so that was her goal. And so a lot of times, after a game, reporters would come and want to interview her. Well, Siouan wanted to talk Happy Town. And she also always jokingly said, yeah, and Tom Brokaw owes us one. He did the documentary Tragedy at Pine Ridge. Yeah. And it really bothered Sue Ann because, you know, there are people on Pine Ridge who are thriving and taking care of their family, and they're not the typical stereotypes that get out. And that's what she wanted to. She wanted to showcase the people who were really making a difference in the reservation.
Sure. So after her passing in 1992, then part of that, her story of Happy Town and her wish to make Pine Ridge and other Indian communities better places. When was the Boys and Girls Club originally founded, and then when did it become the Youth Development Center, the Sue Ann Big Crow Youth Development Center?
Okay, we were the first Boys and Girls Club ever to open on an Indian reservation. So that was a great milestone, and it was just, we got the well, Sue Ann was always talking and saying, you know, there's nothing here for the kids. That's why a lot of them drink and get into trouble. And she was always she started a little activity called Dry Friday. So on Friday nights, the kids had activities, you know, they had movies and they got to hang out and visit. And it was really a good thing for the kids. And so, well, she was, and then her promise for Happy Town. But it was just like Sue Ann was just different. She was gone, but different. She was still here guiding us and pushing us and to create Happy Town.
Yeah, it sounds like she took her role as a role model pretty seriously,
Oh,
even
she
as
did.
even as a teen and a young woman.
She did. You know, she was always talking about. She did a lot of public speaking, and she started when she was 13 years old. You know, talking out against drugs and alcohol, and just really made a difference with peer pressure. And when she died, one of the things someone said was, Sue Ann didn't worry about peer pressure. She was peer pressure. You know, there was just all kinds of reality. And there were people who had, on that day, took their last drink. You know, there was people that completely changed their lives because, you know, they knew what Sue Ann's dream was and what her goals were. And so when, after we paid the funeral expenses and everything, we had $32 left. So we bought in a building, an abandoned factory building. And that's an amazing story in itself because the plastics factory had closed down and nobody knew why, but it was closed since 1974.
Was this in Pine Ridge then?
Yes, it was in Pine Ridge. It was an old metal building. And it's really a personal, spiritual experience for me, how it came about. And it's kind of hard for me to. But anyway, I had a visit from 2 little girls, and it just completely changed my mind. Can I stop for a minute?
No. So after you attained this building, then you were able to. How did that work in bringing the Boys and Girls Club in then?
So we got the building, and we got the building in. Sue Ann died in February. By May, we were remodeling this old building, and John Steele was president. G. Wayne Tapia was mayor, and they're the ones got us the building. You know, and kind of started the. We were able to start because of their support.
Sure. So then there was an application process through Boys and Girls?
This is the amazing story. But anyway, one day me and my grandson was in there, and it was all done in volunteer work and donations from the outside. We wrote a letter to the editor and told him we were going to continue Sue Ann's dream. We were opening we called it a recreation center, but we had a dream. We had a blueprint. We called it our blue book, and we one Saturday morning we all got sat down at my table, and everything that we wanted in that building was in our blueprint. But we started the little old moccasin factory, and people was working. I mean, it's an experience you don't see on many reservations. Many people don't get to experience this, but it was just amazing. There was AIM and Goon working side by side. There was Thorpe and Crusader working side by side, people who hadn't talked to each other since 1974. And this was 1992. And they came in working side by side to build Sioux's Happy Town. And so that's why I say, you know, I'm lucky to be the face of it, but it was all these people that came forward and volunteered and people whose lives she touched.
Sure. That's true community building from the ground up, very grassroots and into what you had achieved at that time. We're going to take a little break, Miss Big Crow, and after a word from our sponsors, we'll learn a little bit more about the Youth Development Center in Pine Ridge. So we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
Closed captioning for Oyate Today, brought to you by West River Ear, Nose, and Throat.
Clark had joint replacement surgery 6 months ago. To his grandson, he is still the MVP. Black Hills Surgical Hospital, bringing more life to your years.
Our school has great students and dedicated teachers, but we need our community volunteers to help us to provide a broader view of the many ways a good education can point to a bright future.
Did someone say volunteer? Our team at Black Hills is here to help. In fact, we sponsor events and projects, and our employees volunteer for organizations throughout the Black Hills, including partnering with schools to help students learn more about life outside the classroom. Extracurricular, extra fun.
When I'm here, I win.
This fall, with a stay-and-play package, one great price lets you experience the best that Prairie Wind has to offer. Great gaming, delicious food, and a one-night stay. Only $99.99 Sunday through Thursday, $149.99 Friday and Saturday. Only at
Prairie Wind Casino. Feel the wind.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Our guest tonight is Miss Leatrice Chick Big Crow of the Siouxan Big Crow Youth Development Center in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. Before the break, Miss Big Crow, we were talking a little bit about youth development strategy. And could you kind of expand on that and talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can. You know, in 1992 we started, but almost immediately we became a Boys and Girls Club. And so, and in 2012, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. And just before we celebrated our anniversary, I got diagnosed with, and I was in stage 4 cancer. And so it had to be treated aggressively, and I retired, and we had this big celebration, you know, 20 years on a reservation, separate from the tribe, operating as a separate entity, and Keeley is the other one, but there's only 2 of us. But so I retired, and we hired someone to come in to replace me, and he could have ran a club anywhere. I mean, he was experienced, he had all the training, but not on Pine Ridge. Pine Ridge, I mean, reservation is different, and you know, the giving isn't there, the volunteerism isn't there, and that's what Boys and Girls Club, they're community-based. But we succeeded. I mean, we were operating great guns, and then President Clinton visited the reservation, and I have a story here too. President Clinton visited the reservation, and just before he got on his helicopter to leave, he turns to the secretaries of HUD and Agriculture, and he says, "Build something for the children at Pine Ridge." Nobody knew where that came from, but I do. So, because just before that, you know, we were coming up on our 10-year anniversary, and we were our 10-year goal was to have a building like we have now. And so one evening I shut the door and I told Siouxan, "Let's go home, we're gonna talk." So we went home and I told her, Sue Ann, I've done everything I can. The building was falling apart. You know, it was all done with volunteer labor, and half of us didn't know what we were doing. And so I told her, I said, I've done everything I can. And if you want us to continue, it's going to be 10 years. We don't have a building. We're outgrowing this one. And you need to step in now. And President Clinton shows up and makes that statement. So I think Sue Ann rode with him all over when he toured the reservation and nudged him and whispered in his ear, come on, Bill, my mom needs a building. Because Sue Ann was like that. You know, she could talk anybody into anything. She just bothered until you talked into it.
Yeah. All these years later, she's still a charismatic leader for not only herself, but the youth and community of Pine Ridge, definitely.
Definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about membership and donations and any of the needs?
Well, we're a membership organization and now it's more important than ever, because when we left Boys and Girls Club, we left our resources. So now we've got the building, we've got anything in that building that it could pique a child's interest. I mean, we've got everything from cameras to musical instruments, the gym, the pool, we've just got everything, but we don't have money to operate or pay salaries. And because when we were Boys and Girls Club, they were a resource and they could do the pass-through federal dollars, but we can't get federal grants as we are because we're operating on Pine Ridge. And so we were closed for a few years, and then now I'm clear of cancer. Actually, I cleared 3 times.
Wow, that's good to know. That's good to hear, yes.
Yeah, and I just, everything in my life has been a lesson. And sometimes, people think, oh, I'm sorry you had cancer. But you know what? It's not sorry you had cancer. Sometimes you got to take a break and back off and look. Because sometimes you don't mean to, but things change. And so when you're sitting in that chemo chair, you got a lot of time to reflect, and hindsight is 20/20, and so you get another chance. And all while I had cancer, I knew I was coming back. I never once thought I wasn't coming back. And now I'm back and ready to go again, but I just kind of need a hand up. And so the building, it's fully equipped. We've got everything we need to get going. But
is there a need for volunteerism down there then?
Oh,
is there
yes.
a need for other services besides just manual time in the building working with the youth? What kind of volunteers are you looking for?
Well, we used to be a site for AmeriCorps. We had AmeriCorps workers, and but in the summertime we run most of our programming through volunteerism, and we get artists and musicians and people that come in for a week or 2 at a time. One thing we promise the parents a safe place for kids. So any volunteer that comes into that building has to be drug and alcohol tested and a background check. And then they can work with our kids.
That's good. That's good to know.
But as far as donations, we get donations, but we don't do mass giveaways. I mean, if you've ever been on the reservation and seen a truck pull in, and there's a big misunderstanding when a lot of people on the outside, they have good hearts and they mean well, but when they find out the poverty there, they want to bring us old clothes. They want to bring us rummage. And we take it, but sometimes it lays on the ground for days, weeks. But with us, part of our youth strategy is self-esteem. So our youth strategy is SCORE. It's self-esteem, confidence building, opportunity, responsibility, and education. Education is our bottom line. We might look like a recreation center. We've got everything to be a recreation center. And Sue Ann is most famous for basketball, but she was also a 4.0 student, and education was very important to her. One of her quotes that gets repeated often is when she did a speech for the 8th grade graduating class at American Horse School, and she told them, high school can be the most fun time of your life, but don't lose sight of its purpose, and education is the key to a better life for our people. And so Sue Ann had all these, she had state track records, all conference volleyball player, She played softball. She did everything. Cross country. She traveled a lot for sports. But her bottom line was getting that message across. We're not different.
Very much so. Very much so.
And one of the National Education Association, they give an award in her memory. It's the Sue Ann Bigcrow Award. And 11 is a big number for us. And so I got invited to present the 11th annual. And I didn't realize it till I was sitting in the audience at the National Education Association conference. I was waiting to come on. And they said, the 11th annual Sue Ann Bigcrow Award. And all of a sudden, I mean, it hit me, 11, 11. But so they had 3 big screens up there. Down one side came Martin Luther King. Down the other side came Cesar Chavez. Right down the middle came Sue Ann Bigcrow. And it just floored me.
That's amazing.
It is
really amazing.
It is amazing.
Ms. Bigcrow, we're going to have to take a break and get a word from our sponsors. So we'll be back after these messages.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. All of the ones get on. It's very sad when all that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Our guest tonight is Miss Leatrice Chick Bigcrow of the Sue Ann Bigcrow Youth Development Center on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Before the break, ma'am, we were talking a little bit about the award from the National Education Association. So if you could kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, that one of Sue Ann's pet peeves was racism, and being on a basketball team and traveling, she faced a lot of racism. But when Pine Ridge won the state basketball tournament in 1987, it was the boys that won it, and there was this person from East River wrote in the newspaper, those Indian children should stay on the reservation and compete against each other. They shouldn't be allowed off the reservation. Kind of wrote a hate letter, and somebody responded, and then we went back to the state tournament in 1989, and somebody pointed him out in the mall. So all the kids went through and they took up their pot shots at him, and so he said, he patted himself on the back and said, I was right. They shouldn't be allowed off the reservation. So he got a cup of coffee, he sat down. This is in the mall in Sioux Falls. Just as he sat down, this little Indian girl slid in across from him, looked him right in the eye and said, how am I different? 40 minutes later, completely changed his mind, and that's where the award got started. It started as a state award.
Wow.
And from there it went national.
National. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and I mean, he said after she talked for a little while, he realized that Indian children aren't different. They have hopes, they have aspirations, dreams, they have ability.
What's amazing about that story and the role that Sue Ann played, even in the interviews and in the news coverage that she had received, is that she, here we are 25 years later, and her influence still plays a role in changing racism, changing the diversity issues that we have in South Dakota. So that's something that we today are still benefiting from her life. So
It's really true. You know, the Spirit of Sioux Award is given away at the state basketball tournament, and it's a beautiful star quilt, and it's depicts what a beautiful world we could have if all the different races could live side by side in harmony, and make this big, beautiful star quilt.
definitely.
And
One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, where do you see the Youth Development Center in the near future and into the distant future? What would you like to see?
I see us back on top. I mean, I think we're just so we've got a really good story, and we've done really good things. A lot of our kids are really prospering that came up through the club, and we don't take credit. That's one thing that just it irks me, is when somebody does something for a child and then
They want to make it about themselves and
yeah,
kind
they
of
take
how
credit
they,
for it.
Sure.
Yeah, and we would never do that. Self-esteem is so important. I mean, when you come from background of poverty, and I consider myself an expert on poverty. I've been in it 70 years, but I'm not asking anybody to do anything that I didn't do. I was a single parent that raised 3 kids, 3 daughters. 2 of them have degrees, and Sue-Ann would have had a degree. But early on, I learned that I supported my kids, but their accomplishments were their own, because the 2 that are here are really highly accomplished. I mean, they've done a lot of good. And Sue-Ann, you know, everybody knows what she's done. So I think by using them as role models, anybody can do it. Because, I mean, I worked 3 jobs at times. There were times when I mean, minimum wage was really good for me. Sure. But, you know, we did it. We came up. My kids got degrees, you know, and we made it. So that's why I think anybody can. If I can do it, anybody can.
As a 70-year-old cancer survivor, your daughter made the winning shot to win the state basketball tournament, but you've also made a winning shot on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation with the youth programs that you've had. So I do appreciate it. We're going to close our show now. Was there any last word you wanted to say for the youth?
Well, yeah, there is actually. I wanted to talk about donations, and like we get donations, but we don't do mass giveaways, because when you do a mass giveaway, there's the needy and the greedy, and you get the greedy. So when we get donations, we hold them and we turn them into an opportunity for kids to do youth community service. I mean, they take the donations out to people who are going to use them.
Sure.
And
thank you for your time, Miss Big Crow. I really do appreciate you being here tonight. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for making Oyate today a part of your evening. You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Native Sun News Today.